Hey guys, it's Danielle over at DIYDanielle.com, and today I'm here to talk about masks and making your own mask. And I want to talk about a few different things and some different styles I've made. If you hear my dog whining or the goats talking, that's what it is. We have some noise here. So first of all, the masks are not the same level of effectiveness as the N95 mask. They're not. However, those masks need to be saved for the people that are working with people that actually have coronavirus. So we don't want to be using those. So what we're doing is making and sewing our own masks to protect ourselves to some degree. But more than that, we are protecting other people in case we already have coronavirus, so we don't spread it, because it keeps us from projecting our germs onto other people. At least that's what I understand. So basically what I've as I understand it, you want to use 3 layers or 2 layers of cotton for this. And you can just wrap a couple bandanas around your mouth if you don't have sewing skills. That's fine. And there's ways to no sew these. Tons of blog posts about it at this point. So it's really doable. We're going to talk about sewing them because that's what I do. And I think that's probably your best method if you have a sewing machine. Just so you, or if you can hand sew them, there's no reason you can't hand sew them. If you have a needle and thread, you can do it. It's not, actually, in some ways it might be easier. It's just a little bit slower because hand sewing is slow. So we're looking at 3 layers of cotton preferably. And there's 2 ways to do it. There's fitted masks that you could fit around your face, and they kind of conform to your face, and they're flat. There's no pleats. And then there's masks that have pleats, and these look really small. And I don't know if you could see, but see, like, there's little tucks here. And when you go to put this on, it opens up and kind of forms to your face a little. Now, the thing about homemade masks is if there's any gaps, those are areas germs can get in. But for the most part, if you're wearing one of these, it does mostly conform to your face, particularly if you're wearing something like glasses over it. You're kind of covering your bases. So your glasses, your eyes are covered, and your nose and your mouth. As long as you're not touching your mask, when you go to take it off, you want to pull it by the strings in the back, remove it, put it in the wash, take your clothes off, shower if you have to go out. That's why it's better not to go out. If we do an outing, we try to do everything we need to do. Whoever's designated as the adult that's going out, we try to do what we do. My husband stopped at the store the other day on the way from work, bought like probably 3 weeks worth of groceries, hopefully, and we won't go out again. And he showered when he came home, and we try to just be as careful as possible. So, yes. So there's ones that are formed to your face, and I'm going to show you one here. And this one is sewn off the pattern by Cricut, and it's a decent pattern. This is a large, so it doesn't fit me very well. But that's how it fits. So I added ties instead of elastic, and the reason is a lot of people have been complaining, especially healthcare workers, that the elastic around their ears really hurts long term wearing them all day. However, a lot of them have been building like things to hold the ear elastic, which takes that pressure off. However, you can just use bias tape. I use bias tape on almost all of mine, and it's really easy to put on. The nice thing is they can custom fit it, so if your elastic was too short or too long, someone might not be able to wear it. But if it's bias tape, they can just tie it tighter if they need to. So this is this one. I did hear someone mentioned that the seam down the middle would leave gaps for germs to get through. I think germs are going to get through anyways if you're really close contact with someone that has it. That's why we're supposed to have 6 feet of distance, social distancing. Again, try not to go out. But I think for the most part, this is going to be good enough, even if it has the seam down the middle. So I've done the same pattern for the pleated ones. They are way easier to cut everything. It'll take less time just cutting out patterns, and you use less fabric than you do for these ones, in my opinion, or at least I think so. However, the pleats are a little bit extra to sew through. it's just something to consider, just because it's kind of tough to get over them. I've got a trick for that. I'm going to explain. However, the only way you can use my trick is if, the only way to use my trick is if you use bias tape, not with the elastic. So let me show you some of the styles I've done. So I've been experimenting with what will be the easiest way to tie these on. So I have one that has elastic in the top and then bias tape on the bottom. And this allows me to put the bias tape around my, or not the bias tape, the elastic around my head so that I can hold it on. I really like this way it goes on. And then these just tie. This allowed me to save on how much elastic I used instead of doing it on both. And also I just didn't want elastic around my neck. So that was one way to do it. The other way, this is my child, or one of my kids' ones. And this is my preferred method right here. And it's the easiest one to sew. So I'm going to do a tutorial on how to sew this particular one. I'm probably going to do that as a separate video, but I wanted to talk about the masks first because this is probably going to be a little long. So on this method, I use just bias tape and it runs down the side. This just makes it easier. I initially started by running it along the top and the bottom and sewing these sides. However, I'm able to do the pleats a little easier if I do them on the sides. So I'm going to explain in my how-to video how to do that, but this was your other option. Now, one of the things I did to save time is I stitched my bias tape over only on this area. I did not stitch all the way down. I feel like the bias tape is pretty well made, that yeah, it may come apart, but I don't think in the context of how long people are going to be using these, that if it opens, it'll be an issue. They're mostly staying closed, so I'm not super worried about it. Okay. And this was an older one. This was one of the first ones I started that's pleated, and I did the bias tape along the top. I would avoid this. I would do on the sides. I think you use less bias. Yeah, you're gonna use less bias tape this way, I think, and it's easier. So like I said, the pleat actually goes on easier. These, it's hard to get as much it's hard to get as much bang for your buck, I guess, in terms of fabric with these, because they cut out, you have to cut out 4 pieces that are kind of like a weird like shape, so you can't really lay it out on your fabric very well, particularly if you want to get a cute design and actually have the design show correctly. So I feel like it just adds a little extra and it takes up too much extra fabric. And again, it's cute. If you're making 5 for your family, awesome. If you're trying to make 30 or 50 of these for neighbors and friends and family and to donate to the hospital, just go with the rectangles because it's easier. Okay, so just the last thing is there are hospitals that are asking for them. There's doctor's offices that are asking, but just contact them and make sure you understand what they want, because we don't want to see these going to waste. What might not work for a hospital or what they might not want might be great for your neighbor who needs to have one to run to the grocery store. So I'd hate to see these get thrown out. Certain hospitals are saying, I want you to use this pattern or this type of fabric or we're not going to accept them. And I don't know what that's boiling down to in terms of things getting tossed. And the big part of the issue is the CDC was saying just a few weeks ago, oh, no masks. And that was to prevent people from going to run out and buy all the masks that the healthcare workers actually need and should be getting. It was not to say don't wear a mask. A lot of places in a lot of other countries are already wearing these masks. It's helped flatten their curves, and it's a good thing to do. At the very least, it is keeping you from spreading it if you have it. At the best, and we're hoping the best, it's reducing our chances of getting it as well. Again, your best bet is just to stay home. I'm going to try to get a video up on how to make these and how to make them quickly as soon as I can, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about masks and some of the different options you have for making them. So the other thing to note is These pleats, it makes it look really small. They look teeny, but once they open up, they really do work very well to fit around your face and get under your chin. You want your mask to go from the top of your nose, somewhere kind of like in the top or middle, to underneath your chin, and then all the way over to like right here. Ideally, that's how you want it to fit. You don't want the mask up in your eyes. If you make one that's a little too big, like this one my husband's been using, because it's a large, but I can technically roll this down and it'll fit. It's not ideal. However, and my last tip is we do have a bin by the door to keep these in. They're one use only. We use them and then we put them in the laundry. And when they're clean, I put them right back in the basket. And the reason for this, I want to make sure they're easy to grab in case we have an emergency. I knew a girl in one of my mom's groups. She said, my kid broke their arm and I have to go to the hospital right now and bring him. And she's like, what do I do? Like, I'm nervous, you know. And this is where you want a mask for everyone in your family. I have a mask for each of my kids. If I have to bring them and my husband's at work because he's still considered essential, if I have to bring all 3 kids, they all need to be wearing a mask. I don't know how I would ever keep a mask on my 2-year-old, but I have a mask for him and I will grab it if we have to leave all together. And I will pray my husband can meet me at the hospital before I have to go in with all the children. But this would just, it's our backup plan. Do you know what I mean? So just to be safe. If you sew, it's really nice to just offer to make some for other people. Many people are selling them or selling them for cost or whatever, but it's a great way to use all your scrap fabric, your scrap cottons. All of mine are like kid fabric because that's the only cottons I have. I am not a quilter. I make like apparel stuff, but that's not the right type of fabric. Last tip. Sorry, another last tip. Make sure you are pre-washing your fabric on hot, because when someone's washing these, they really do want to wash them on hot. It'll help kill germs. Technically, cold water washes with soap should kill germs too. However, a lot of people might go ahead and wash them on hot. And you really, you don't want it to shrink after you make it. So, you know, so put the fabric on hot before you start sewing it or cutting it or anything. Put it through a dryer cycle on hot, and then sew with it. And certain fabrics I would never sew with. I have 100% cotton Doodles fabric that I love using for kids stuff, but I would never use it for these because it shrinks so badly even after you sew with it, and even after you run it through a couple cycles, like a lot of times it'll still shrink a little even on cold. So I've been hesitant to use it for a project like this where people are really intensively washing them. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Keep an eye out. I'll try to put a post up on how to make these quickly. So and again, they're only as quick as they are. But I've kind of gotten a method that I like and I think is pretty fast. So I'm going to show you how to do it. Thanks so much. Have a good day. Bye.